I've been freelancing for, wow, I think almost 15 years, which shows my age. Um, and so what I'm going to do in this talk is kind of talk around me, which is cringe, and then like kind of how I fell into it and all of that stuff. But then I'm going to kind of talk about how to get into the industry in terms of like you as a brand. So, and finally after that, I've also got just a couple of tips and like maybe some like recommendations on things that you can do if you ever decide to go freelance. So yeah, I'm a freelance user interface and user experience and brand designer. Essentially, basically, when I came, what I studied at university was communication design. Web design was kind of just starting out, really. Like responsive design wasn't even a thing. So like one thing I've learned in this industry is to like self-educate, because in these sectors everything is constantly changing and you need to kind of keep up with the industry standards. So like constantly learning new softwares is really important in these industries. So a little bit about me. 2008 I graduated. As you can see, I took university really seriously. I then, when I came out, it was the financial crisis, so I couldn't get a job anywhere. Nobody wanted a junior, so I really wanted to stay in design. I didn't want to, just try and get any job. I wanted to make sure I was in the design industry. So what I did at first, I just interned. I interned in Leeds, London, and Brighton. And these were in the days where you didn't get paid. I was lucky if I got like my travel covered, but I just kind of had some tight months freelancing, not freelancing, interning at these places. But it was, it was great experience, kind of going from university, trying to get up to industry speed. It was extremely useful to do. I also just started doing tutorials online, figuring out like how to work every software I could get my hands on. But eventually, when I realized I could get a job anywhere, I decided out of necessity that I'll go freelance. So in 2009, I made a website, called it Greg Lewis Designs. And I just kind of like blagged it. I went around knocking on doors, asking for anyone for work. I'd be doing jobs for like, I don't know, like £10 an hour kind of thing, like just flyers. And it slowly started to grow, and my client base eventually started to take off. In my first year, I earned £6,000. I was very fortunate that I was staying at my partner's parents' house, so it was extremely cheap way to live. And that was the only way I managed to do it when I was young. And yeah, just very fortunate I could do that. So as my client base grew, I rebranded into Good Looking Design. And so what I do really day to day is I brand kind of small to medium-sized businesses. So that will be anything from a logo to marketing materials, stationery, through to websites. And at this point, I also do consultation. I then started to get into contracts at like local agencies in Brighton, like only like a couple of weeks, and then some turned into a couple of months. And the way I got a lot of these contracts was I actually applied for jobs just to get my foot in the door. So I'd apply for a job, get to know the company, and they'd get to know me, and they would like my work. And I would basically get into the final round and be like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't think I'm actually ready to leave the freelance industry, but if ever you need a freelancer, you know who to call. And yeah, I got a lot of work that way. I'm not sure if it was that ethical, I suppose, but it was a way of getting in there. So in 2016, one of my clients, who I'd done a couple of jobs for, approached me and said, hey, we're doing a startup. Would you like to come on board? And at this point, I'd been freelancing for, I think, 7 years. And I thought, oh, okay, well, I've never had an employed role before, so it'd be quite interesting to do. I'll give it a go. And essentially, like, I was employee number one. And it was really interesting working in a startup. I learned so much, kind of like the business side of this kind of industry and kind of some management stuff. But it lasted about 3 years, just under 3 years. And there was like a lot of downsides. There was long hours, long commute. The pay wasn't actually great. I was promised equity in the business, which they stole from me, that kind of great tech stories that you hear. And it was a high stress environment. The owners turned out to be not very nice people. And yeah, I felt underappreciated. So I went back to freelancing. I rang up some of my old clients and kind of begged and pleaded for some jobs. And fortunately, they were like, yeah, come back. We'd really like you to do some work for us. So when I went back to freelance, I like kind of gave myself a bit of a mantra. I was going to work smart and not hard. In that, obviously, I will work like to a certain level hard, but not doing long hours. I will make processes so that I'm not constantly like on the phone to clients. I'm not like constantly putting out custom presentations. I wanted my brand to be more personable, come across more professional, but also to inject some fun into it. And in this time, I had a young family, so I wanted to work fewer hours, but I also wanted to make some more money. So yeah, I just started. I'm not quite sure what I did, to be honest, but I just kept getting new clients on board, producing good work, and referrals kept coming in. So I had a constant flow of work. I also made some really good relationships with some local agencies, and they gave me very regular work, to the point where I could basically forecast that the agencies would give me enough work to pay the bills, and then that gave me time to gamble on like all my other clients, so I could take on really fun projects. So yeah, I'm going to talk about branding now. So what is a brand? And I don't particularly like him, but he says it very well here, Jeff Bezos. Your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So it's just that they remember you stand out above everyone else. And that the brand isn't just your logo, it's also you as a person. So if you're starting out in freelancing, one of the first decisions you make is like naming your business. So I originally started out just calling the business Greg Lewis Designs, and then eventually moved away from that and gave myself a business name. There's pros and cons for both. Like calling yourself by your name gives you like kind of local recognition. People don't have to remember your name and the business name. You're perceived as more affordable because they're like, oh, this is a one-man, what's the word? One-man business. But that's also a con because you're perceived as more affordable. Sometimes it's hard to like justify some of your costs. And again, you know, pros and cons for having a business name. You appear more professional. You appear like larger to companies before, you know, they might get you in before they even realize you're just a freelancer. That's also a con sometimes, but generally if they like your work, they'll get you to do the work. It's also easier to grow. So say, for example, you ever wanted to turn it into a business, it would be a much easier process. So kind of like the flagship of your brand is your logo. Super important to make it clear, simple, and adaptable. So my logo, my name, something I didn't think about, is really long. So it's actually really hard to put into a logo. So I sometimes use the acronym GLD if I've not got much space, like if I'm on a mobile website, for example. But it made me come up with like an interesting way of showing my logo at full width. So to introduce animations. How do you make a logo? So if you're not a designer, you could still make your own logo. You could buy a logo from, you know, 100 different websites and just put your name under it. If you want something really like personable and you want like the whole brand journey, you could hire someone to do that. It's important to develop a style. So the brand isn't the logo alone, it's everything else. So think about your color palette, also think about accessibility when we're talking web. The typography, so are you going to use sans serifs? Are you going to use serif fonts? Are you going to have a blend? Imagery, video, it's all really useful. Like on my website, when you land on it, there's a video just of me working. So like, I hope that the user straight away knows I'm like a one-man outfit. And I'm not kind of hiding that. I'm showing everyone who I am. And also like developing a voice. So get your personality into your company. I'm quite playful, so I have quite a relaxed style in my brand, and my clients like that. I believe they also, if they didn't, I think they'd get rid of me. And then so once you have those stuff, it's like how you apply your brand. So it doesn't matter if it's like on digital or kind of physical, make it consistent, make sure you're using the same colors, your logo doesn't differ on different mediums. And the reason for that is it just builds trust. So when you're handing over your anything, if you're in an email and you've got your logo, if you're given an invoice, it's got your logo on, you know, all of it kind of like subconsciously just builds trust in your brand. This is a really difficult one when you're starting out, is what to do about your portfolio. Portfolios are really important because you can like show your skill set. And so whenever I come to a freelancer's website, if I can't see their work, I have no idea of gauging like their like level or whether they'd be a good fit for me. So even if you don't have any actual real projects, make some up and say like, this is a pretend case study, but like what the client or maybe the agency want to see is your process. So if you can show a really good process as to how you got to that end product, you could potentially sell yourself. It's also really important to keep your portfolio updated. So the second you get a new project done, get it on your website and do a great case study about it. Finding clients. It's weird. There's no like guaranteed formula for it. So there's job portals, which I've got some links to later on in the presentation. You could like work for agencies as well on kind of a contract. You could get it by marketing yourself. That could be like locally, so like just flyer in, through to like paid campaigns on social media. Joining forums, so maybe local business forums. You can always say, hey, I've got some availability. Are you looking to brand your local business? Or are you looking for a website for your local business? If so, get in contact. If you've got friends in the industry, it's really good because you might find that you're busy or they're busy and they've got an influx of work coming in. They might get you to help them on the project, or they might pass the client over to you because they just can't take them on. Networking events, I'm not very good at these, but they work for some people, so give them a go. Knocking on doors, again, when I started out, I was terrible at phoning people, but if you get an inquiry via email, if they've given you a phone number, get them on the phone, because the easier you make it for them, the more likely they are going to sign up with you. So I find that phone calls, you're way more likely to convert than if you just reply via email. And I've mentioned it earlier, referrals. So not only just from your like friends in the industry, but if you do good work, your current clients are going to recommend you to their business associates or friends. You never know where your next project is going to come from. Quoting for work. I don't know about you, but I'm a real snob when it comes to like receiving quotes. If like, for example, I'm having my conservatory roof redone at the moment. I've had a couple of quotes come through where it's just an email with basically a total price. And I'm like, no, why am I paying you this money? I need to know why. Whereas other companies give me a breakdown of their costs with like kind of timeframes and all these kind of things. And it kind of like just makes me trust them a lot more, especially if I see their kind of the brand in it. It just shows that they're really established and they know what they're doing. When creating quotes, like really consider like your pricing strategy. Like, how are you going to charge? Are you going to charge a day rate? What I usually do is I have an hourly rate and I might adjust it depending on the work. If it's a project I really want, I might drop it. Like if it's a local business. If it's a bigger business, I know they've got the money, I'm going to go in at my full rate. Again, in the quotes, really break it down. What will you be doing? Explain like with your, like if it's a website, for example, all the wizardry that you're going to be implementing on their website. Get a deposit. I'd say get 50% upfront. Either they're going to pay or not. If they don't pay, it means that they're probably going to be a nightmare client anyway. And if they do pay, that means they're invested and they will probably be with you through to the end. Contracts, it kind of depends on the situation. I've got some contract template links I'll send. I often don't actually use contracts because if they're a small local person, we have a good relationship, if we have a deposit up front, I don't want to make it more complicated. But for some people, it is kind of helpful. It might depend on your industry as well. Find partners. You can't do it all. When I was starting out, I was like, oh, I know, if I learned to code, I could like make these beautiful websites and develop it and take all the money. But you know, it really slows down your productivity because you'll just be on the project for ages. And also you won't be able to do some of it as well as other bits. So just address your weaknesses, focus on what you're good at, and like team up. So I have some developers that I've worked with in the past who I really like. I know some really good illustrators. I know other designers who I hand over my work if I'm too busy. And it's really nice because you build a community. So you always have people to talk about as like two who know the industry and know how you're feeling, and you can ask for advice, or you can just have a little laugh when something funny happens. So newsletters, once you've got a client base, like keep them engaged, build up a campaign like MailChimp or Campaign Monitor, add them to your list, and don't hound them, but maybe once every quarter, just send out an email just to like make them remember you, really. Show off your latest work, any blog posts, anything like that. And also, you know, make them fun so people actually want to read them. Blogs, great to do in downtime. So if you're finding you haven't got much on, well, don't just sit there twiddling your thumbs, do something. So I write blogs. I explore, you know, things that are personal to me. And so they're kind of cathartic, but also you can generate new leads. I did a post in January and it went viral, went on Hacker News and all these other sites. And I got some work out of it. So that was really, really great. So you never know where they will lead. Social media, I'm not great at it, but I try. Just, again, it's a great way of building a community, generating leads, and just having a bit of fun, really. Think of creative ways to engage your audience. So imagine you've done a project. Don't just hand it over, present it, sell it in, make sure that the client is happy. So in my case, I always do like a presentation deck at the end. I'll either come in or present on Zoom and explain the whole thought process, all the reasoning. I will even like show like mock-ups of how it could be implemented in their business. It shows your thought, it shows professionalism, and it reinforces your brand because, you know, your logo's on these pitch decks and it just looks super professional. You know, you look like you know what you're doing. That's really it when it comes to branding. Just simple, just keep, the main thing is consistency. Keep it consistent, keep it professional, and you'll be great. I'm going to kind of like, I don't know how I'm doing for time, but I was just going to quickly rush through a few bits, if that's all right. Budget. So if you're starting out, you need to think about budget. What do you need to survive? Like, what can you get? What can you pay your rent on? Do you need an office? I don't. I work from home. It saves a fortune. What are your software costs, hardware costs? Tax, always leave money in your account for tax. Otherwise, it's a nightmare. Consider time off. You're taking holidays. If you're taking paternity, maternity leave, no one's going to pay you that for that. You've got to like budget that in. And always have money in your account for lean months. You never know when a client might just vanish. You know, when COVID hit, I lost loads of clients and they slowly came back, but there was a lean period. Financials, you know, setting up your business. I'd say, you know, go to an accountant. They can help you set up your business, talk you through best processes, whether you want to go self-employed or become a limited company. Accounting software is super useful. It's really good for forecasting. I've got a little cheeky referral code on there if you're interested. Business banking, again, go with the cool online ones. I pay like 10p a month for Tide. It's brilliant. It's all you need. Get a pension. Everyone needs a pension. I was really bad and only started, I think, 2 years ago. Sorry, Carl. Liability insurance, again, if you're like kind of in the world of code, I think it's really vital that you take liability insurance. Organize, stay organized. So have plans, have goals, you know, get however you find it easy to like keep abreast of everything. Use that, whether it's writing it down, using something like Notion or just a calendar. For meetings, you know, try and keep them to half an hour. You don't want to talk about their dog for too long. Client correspondence, again, keep your emails short and professional. I have one client who just waffles on, but then I just like send back like a one-line reply. Be kind to yourself. If you feel like you're going to burn out, tell your clients, they're really understanding, and just take some time off. Because if you try and work through a burnout, you're going to produce rubbish work, and then you're going to have like annoyed clients, and you're going to feel terrible. So just, yeah, take the time off. Value your time. Always charge. Be strict with your availability. You can't pay your rent with exposure or spec work, or for that matter, the idea of shares. Shares mean nothing. Learn from me. Back yourself. So say yes. If a client asks you, can you do X, Y, or Z, and you've never done it, say yes. Just figure it out, or get someone you know who can do it. You're more qualified than your client because you're just in the industry. Like, generally, clients are clueless. If you don't say yes, someone else will, and you know, that's a potential project you've lost. Be ready to pivot and look for opportunities. So if you find go down a couple of projects and you find a niche, you find something you're really good at, hone in on that and make that your brand, and make that what it is you sell to all your clients. And then you'll become known as that person in that industry. Quickly talk about my toolkit. So I use Figma, Adobe. Plausible is like an alternative to Google Analytics, which is like, it doesn't like strip your like viewers' rights. Streamline icons is like a beautiful icon set that I pay out for. Invanto, it's really good for like stock, not just imagery, but like PSDs, kind of web design. It's got everything, video, even some codey bits. It's just really useful for like as a starting point on certain projects. Stuff for free, it's like just like image optimizations, what I use for editing GIFs, and most importantly, podcast player. As a freelancer, you will listen to a lot of podcasts. Well, I do. This is a fantastic community. This is Array, set up by Andy Bell, and it's just a place where designers, developers, copywriters, basically anyone in the freelance industry go to chat. You can go there for mentorship, friendship, and also leads. It's $5 a month, but it's well worth it. So these are just the links I've kind of mentioned throughout. Yeah, all good stuff to look at. I'm going to share this after I've finished, and you guys can have a look and grab all the links. And then if you're looking for like projects or contracting work, these places are brilliant. Mainly they are working for agencies on contract roles, but the one at the end is for like client work. Be careful on those places. They can turn into a bit of a bidding war. Don't drive yourself down. If you get a good client out of there, great, but don't waste your time on people trying to drive down your price. It's not worth it. That's it. I hope that was helpful. Thanks.